Hello, my friend. Welcome to your Reiki session. I hope you're doing as well as possible. I'm going to be doing a session today to help you free yourself from the avoidant attachment style. Now, sometimes the only thing that it takes for us to shift our mentality, transform our lives, is just awareness, just the recognition of who we are, how we're maybe behaving, highlighting certain ways that we are maybe sabotaging ourselves. So, if you know what avoidant attachment is, and you know that you are someone who has that attachment style, then just know that there's nothing wrong with you. In fact, what you have done is taken what you were given, the life you were born into, the experiences that you've had, and you adapted. You created an adaptation without knowing that it was part of a pattern that many people follow. But it's not your fault, and there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. But just know that if you find yourself in really turbulent relationships, if you find yourself always with somebody who is, having really big emotions, if you feel like you dissociate a lot, maybe you spend a lot of time in your own head, the second maybe someone gets a little bit close, you want to pull back. The idea of physical intimacy feels very uncomfortable. The idea of emotional intimacy feels extremely uncomfortable. The idea of intimacy in general is just very foreign to you. None of this is your fault. These were adaptations that you made in order to cope with, maybe it was neglect, maybe it was a really turbulent or chaotic childhood, home life. So it's just important to, from the get-go, recognize that no matter what your attachment style is, there's nothing wrong with you. And if you are an avoidant attachment, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not selfish. The thing is that you've just got coping mechanisms that aren't really helping you to forge deep, strong connections with others, and even to forge deep, strong connection with yourself. So we can just start to play around with pushing out against the preconceived notions, the behaviors you've engaged with, and just see how far you can kind of extend yourself into a way of being that maybe feels a little bit more in line with what you want to call in your life. One of you gave me this, and I just realized that I had never used it. It's this rainforest maroma incense of Oroville. So I'm going to go ahead and use this incense today to just do some preliminary clearing. I just want you to feel nice, clear, cleansed, protected. It's called Rainforest. It's really nice. Very, very fresh scent, as you might imagine. So if you are someone who has an avoidant attachment style, it can show up in many different ways, right? We're all so different. It's just kind of a general term for when you are getting closer to someone and you become vulnerable in some way, whether that's love. Love is a very vulnerable thing, right? Or whether it's, you have made a mistake and you're having to apologize. Whether you are, in a relationship where maybe you're starting to say what you want in that relationship and that feels really vulnerable. But typically, what it means is that when you get close to somebody and when you are vulnerable, you start to go back in your snail shell. You're typically an avoidant would be, in terms of your sympathetic nervous system, in the fight, flight, freeze, fawn. You would probably be freeze or flight. You would maybe engage in some of that fawn, but an avoidant is not always. I mean, you can have avoidants who can be very aggressive and get into that fight mode, but very often it's this wanting to appear maybe perfect, maybe impervious to the hurt of others. If someone says something to you, you're impervious. You're not affected by those around you. That you are really wanting to control the narrative that other people have of you. So I'm just clearing that kind of like the residual energy from the day or the night. But the avoidant doesn't really want to run into the conflict. They don't want to charge into the fray. They don't want to, be in that chaos. They kind of want to dip out. They kind of they just want to have a lot of control in the situation. So in an argument, they might dissociate. They might actually physically leave. When a partner kind of leans in, they might really lean back. And so what this can lead to is feeling like really misunderstood. No one knows how to love you the right way. That it shouldn't be this hard. I'm not getting what I want. And that's kind of the mode. That's the consistent thing, is just I'm misunderstood. And what that can lead to is that there's, you start to pull away. And then if you're with someone who is anxiously attached and you pull away, that person will come closer to you. And so you just kind of have this dance where you'll pull back a bit, they'll come closer to you, it will draw you in for a bit, and then you'll start to draw back again. And it's just this dance where we're sort of trying to fulfill a past errand. This kind of past life errand, this errand from your childhood, this family heirloom, heir wound, where there's so much behind it, wanting connection, desperately wanting connection, fearing connection, desperately wanting love, fearing being loved, desperately wanting to be vulnerable and being so scared of being vulnerable. So it can show up in ways, and if you're with someone who's an avoidant, it can be challenging because sometimes it might feel like they're not here, or they're not, present, or that maybe they don't love you. But the truth is that they're just trying to come back to a sense of homeostasis when they revert back to that. That's what we're trying to do, right? If you're an avoidant attachment, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to come back to something that feels familiar, because that'll feel safe to us. But if we can instead start to say, oh, okay, what if my sense of self is something deeper, something beyond other people's perceptions of me? What if I am something beyond all of that? An avoidant. If you're an avoidant, we might really struggle with, let's say, feeling safe in friendship, feeling like we can share things with friends. Trust might be really, really difficult for us. It might not be available for us very often. It might be really difficult for us to feel safe. So, if you are with someone who's an avoidant, I think finding ways in which they feel safe, what makes you feel really safe in our relationship? And showing up for them in a way that's, consistent can be helpful. Being honest and clear. This is good for any relationship, right? But just understanding that if you're with an avoidant who is not healing that, like currently healing that aspect of themselves, the relationship will be very challenging. It will feel like you're trying to grab at smoke, right? But when you're with an avoidant who is trying to heal, that healing process typically looks like really practicing mindfulness. They might be, engaging in meditation for the first time. They might be really practicing grounding. And so for you, if you can start to say, okay, I know the things that trigger this person. Maybe it's when I am distant. Maybe it's when I give them the cold shoulder. Maybe it's when I've really got my plate full and I don't have enough time for them. Or maybe it's when I'm leaning in too much, asking them how they're doing too much. Maybe that, is triggering for them. But whatever it is, if you start to notice the things, or, you've talked to your partner and you've just established the things that are triggering for them, just recognize that if something like that does happen, maybe you are having to go away a lot for work and you're noticing that they're pulling back, or maybe you've been feeling a little anxious lately and so you're starting to, ask them a bunch of questions. How are you doing? Are you feeling okay? Is everything okay? And maybe you notice them pull back. Just know that it, very likely, if there's someone who is an avoidant, it really doesn't have anything to do with you. I don't want you to ever feel like you're, that yes, we have an impact on other people, but when someone is unhealed, in certain ways, we have to kind of ground even deeper into ourselves in those moments and just trust ourselves, trust who we know ourselves to be. And so if they're in healing that aspect of themselves, doing our best to show up for them in a way that is grounded within ourselves. It's true of, I think, any attachment style. It's healing if you're in a relationship with them. And if you are an avoidant attachment, what I would say is that the thing to do most often is practice mindfulness. If you are an avoidant attachment style and you don't have a meditation practice, I highly recommend that you do that. If you're an avoidant attachment and you're not involved in some kind of healing program, whether that's therapy, whether that's maybe you're doing like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, whether that's maybe some other sort of talk therapy, or maybe you're in some kind of a group, or something like that can be really, really helpful, just to really help you kind of reframe some of those childhood fears and to help you shift into a modality that's more supportive and conducive to the kind of connections that you want now, that are different than what you needed when you were a child. I think in a way it's very sad, an avoidant attachment, because as soon as they get close to someone or start feeling that all of that wonderful love, then we cut it off, right? As soon as I start feeling a little bit of love, I cut it off if I'm an avoidant attachment. And so it really is, you're cutting yourself off from the very thing that you crave more than anything else. We do. And so it's just, that can be very, very tricky. And so just know that there are ways that you can move differently. So if you are an avoidant attachment, I would say grounding is tremendously important and empowering. So anything you can do to get in your body is going to be super helpful. Get out of your mind and get into your body. So maybe that means that you go for a walk every single day. Maybe that means you just really pay attention to how things feel for you, physical touch. Maybe you use really grounding stones during your meditation. You use really grounding stones, things like tiger's eye, things like jaspers, I love red jasper. Anything that can connect you, anything kind of primal that can connect you to your own sense of safety, that you are safe. And, this sense of self-reliance, right, that we can have as avoidant attachment can be, used as a superpower. We can use that to be really self-sufficient and independent, as long as that is balanced with fulfilling our longing for connection, trusting others. Likely, if you are an avoidant attachment, you really struggle with trust. So we just really want to ground in the fact that you are safe, ground in the fact that, there are wonderful people who are going to be such wonderful connections for you. And that, yes, there are also people who might be healing themselves, and so they're not going to be necessarily super supportive, but that there are wonderful people who are worthy of our vulnerability, who are worthy of us putting ourselves out there, putting ourselves on a limb to really be connected, have that true connection, to have that dance of empathy and compassion with someone we care about, sharing, being vulnerable, and trusting that we are safe. Sometimes avoidants can be disconnected from their intuition. I think most times when we're anxious in general, we're disconnected from our intuition. We're coming at things from a very fear-based mentality, which means that we are disconnected from our intuition. There has to be a sense of trust when we're tapping into our intuition, right? But I think that specifically with avoidance, there is just this extra little kernel of sort of disconnection from intuition, even, where you kind of let fear override that. But avoidants are like, there's so many wonderful things that you can kind of flip on your head about it. So that's important, just to recognize that you can use the things that you learned and that wiring that you developed as a child in order to strengthen some of the skills and social connections that you have today. So maybe you're hypersensitive to energies and you're like, oh, this person is not somebody who's going to validate me, so I'm going to steer clear of them. Or this person is somebody who maybe would do the anxious attachment dance with me. So before taking action on it, recognizing that maybe you have a real sensitivity to people's energies. Maybe you're really aware, even if you don't maybe consciously know it, that, oh, this person is someone who I could do the anxious attachment dance with. Take away the potential of the dance and just say, oh, this person might be anxiously attached. Okay, maybe that's why I'm drawn to this person. Start looking at, oh, why is it that I'm drawn to certain people? Is there a pattern? Have I been drawn to people who have really leaned in, who have really been kind of the chasers? And have I been the person who's really, really leaned back? The second that I feel a little bit of intimacy or that they've made themselves vulnerable, I start, being repelled and kind of leaning back. If that's the case, you might just consider that this is something that you're moving through. Because as we shift into this inner knowing, as we start to recognize what's possible for us, that in relationship we are able to be vulnerable, and there are people out there who won't use that against us, and we are able to be secure in a relationship, and we are able to be vulnerable and not be left behind and not be left alone. And it's possible that people could create a narrative about us that we don't like, that we didn't consent to. And even if someone creates that narrative about us, it's possible for us to still be okay. It's possible for you to be okay even though you're not completely in control of everything. You don't have to be in control to be safe. It's really important to recognize, maybe you could say the serenity prayer, whether you are, have an addiction or not. The serenity prayer is so helpful just in really shifting our perspective about control. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So, recognizing that you can change and shift and transform today, this very moment, you could change your life forever. If you choose, I'm going to start doing things differently. When I'm starting to notice myself panicking in a relationship, feeling claustrophobic, leaning back, or feeling like this is all too much, I don't know how to handle this, I'm retracting into my snail shell, it's possible for me to take a moment, give it some space, give it some time before I react, and then choose how I want to respond from a very present, mindful, grounded place. You're safe. You're safe, even though it doesn't feel safe to be vulnerable. It is. It is. You are safe. Yeah, some of your ego might have to crumble away a little bit. Some of your that control that you have over the way that people perceive you and all that might crumble away. But that was all an illusion anyway. You never had any control over anyone except yourself. So it's okay. You're safe. You're safe. you're safe. And again, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. I understand this attachment style so well. I think when I was not in my healed state, not in my healing state, when I hadn't chosen to heal, I was, had all the attachment styles. and avoiding things in certain ways. I think it's a mechanism, right? But what it does is it actually it perpetuates the fear. Because then we kind of create this world where we are living in a state of fear about everybody, mistrust in everybody. And I think it's much more freeing, and it's much safer when we shift out of that and start to see the reality. Yes, people make mistakes. Yes, people might hurt you unintentionally or intentionally. They might hurt you. But regardless, if we start to paint everyone with the same brush, we're missing out on so many amazing connections. There are people who are going to hear your vulnerability and who are going to honor it. There are people who are going to see your weaknesses and who are going to hold space for them and who are going to have empathy for you. Your vulnerability does not make you weak. Your soft underbelly does not make you weak. It makes you even more available for connection, for true connection. So I didn't tell you, but I'm coming through with these two stones, wonderful stones. If you're an avoidant attachment, petrified wood. These two, I'd say, are some of the best stones for an avoidant attachment. Petrified wood, super grounding, super grounding. You might place this underneath your pillow at night. You might place this underneath your bed. You might place this if you meditate on a cushion, underneath your cushion. Right now, as you're receiving this session, you might place this underneath your back and your low back. And then we have this beautiful smoky quartz. Smoky quartz heals above and below. It heals the crown chakra, the root chakra. It helps to promote this flow between the two. But it's also very deeply grounding, kind of channeling that universal energy down through your midline and out through your feet, creating this fluid, beautiful column of light. So we're just filling your aura up with these two. And I just want to remind you that no matter where you are on this journey, there's just so much hope. We can always grow. We can always change. We can always shift. And if there's one thing to practice, like we talked about meditation and therapy, and we've talked about, really having some grounding practices. If there's one thing that you can really take with you, it's that feeling of this is the only way. Anytime you get into that very rigid structure, I would just encourage you to start challenging it, to start looking at that. Maybe you're noticing, I'm starting to recognize the pattern that I do with friends, with relationships. Maybe you are sabotaging so that you pull back. So maybe your pulling back isn't necessarily just about closing down, shutting down, piecing out. Maybe it's instead about you start sabotaging the relationship. Maybe you start doing those things that you know that they don't like. Maybe you start staying out later, or maybe you start being distant or disrespectful. Just take a moment, recognize the pattern. I'm doing the thing. Let the shroud of illusion fall away and just start to recognize, the feelings that I have of don't like this person anymore. Maybe there's resentment that's building up. I don't have my free time. I don't do this. And start to just ask yourself, is this because I'm in my unhealed state? Am I in my avoidant attachment style right now? Am I acting from that place? Okay. Just giving yourself permission to have that awareness, giving yourself space to have that epiphany of like, this is the pattern. I don't have to believe everything I think. This is the pattern. So be kind to yourself, but also be aware of the pattern. I'm going to place this at your lower back here. Just lift. There we go. Perfect. That's good. So, and this doesn't mean that whoever you're with is you have to ignore all of the signs and the red flags and you're healing yourself, so you're just going to be with. No, I think you always have to pay attention to the impact that other people have on you. But really, this is an inside job. When you're doing this healing, the first most important thing is to recognize the pattern, and from there you can break it and you can choose to do something different. But if you're not aware of it, it's very hard to break it, to shift out of there. Now, an anxious attachment style is different, right? An anxious attachment style is one where you are always leaning in, always leaning towards. Maybe you're with someone who's anxiously attached, or maybe you are anxiously attached with an avoidant. But an anxious attachment is very, well, what's the problem? Well, I can fix it. Well, I can help. Well, I don't need, I can do this. I can help you. Very like puppy energy. And so that energy can kind of spiral out and just feel really manic. It can feel really assertive in a way, kind of like asserting that energy onto you. But again, there's nothing wrong with you if you are an anxious attachment. It really is just that's, a coping mechanism from your past and what you've learned about love and attachment and connection through that trauma as a child has meant that you really you crave that validation, you crave that external validation, you crave that connection and that in that way. You feel like kind of like you have to work for everything. You have to work for the connection. You have to work for it. You're always leaning in. And there are different ways of healing, although many of them overlap. The ways of healing for an anxious attachment are things like, mindfulness, deep self-love, and self-nurturing. But self-nurturing, self-love, and self-validation are part of our secure attachment journey, no matter what end of the spectrum we're coming at it from. I have some sandalwood and cedarwood in here. I have some moon water, very grounding for our avoidant attachment. You are safe to set healthy boundaries. You are also safe to connect deeply with people. You are safe to be present with someone when they're sharing something vulnerable. You are also safe to share something and be vulnerable. True connection comes out of that vulnerability. It can only be birthed from that place of vulnerability. Often with this comes a lot of shame. And I think that's one of the most devastating aspects. If we can release that shame, start to see our actions as individual moments and not character defining, right? I think sometimes when we do diagnostics of, I'm an avoidant attachment or an anxious attachment, this is how I am, sometimes I think that can be a little bit problematic. First, I think it can lead to shame. This is how I am. I feel so ashamed. This is how I am. Instead of, this is the way I behave because of this thing that happened, and I have the power within me to shift that and to do something different. That there are lots of other options, and I can choose one of those. Like avoiding, that's available. That's definitely available to me. That's available to all of us. We can all avoid. There's also lots of other things that are available to us that might feel more aligned and that might feel better and that might get us the results that we want, and that also might lead to deeper, more meaningful connections. Another aspect of why I think labeling yourself and really identifying with the label can be problematic is because I think sometimes we can really rely on that crutch of, oh, I'm an avoidant, this is how I am. So if we use it as a key to unlock a door of healing, then I think it can be powerful. But one of the reasons I haven't gone down this path yet of talking about this is that I think sometimes it can make us feel like stuck, and then therefore it can make us feel locked in, and it can sometimes lead to us double downing on that, saying this is how I am, this is the way that I am, oh yeah, that's who I am, that's the way it is. And I want to just shift away from that a little bit. I have this blue apatite. This is a fantastic stone for deep inner child healing, deep healing work. Got this when I lived in the Redwoods, and it's just so, so beautiful. Or no, I got this before I moved to the Redwoods, actually. One of my many trips up there before I moved there. Blue apatite, it's so beautiful. And so this one is just another fabulous stone for an avoidant attachment. Doing that deep inner healing, helping you to understand that you are okay, you are safe. You're safe. You're safe. I'm gonna place this right here at your heart space. Just helping you just to feel into that sense of safety. You're grounded, you're safe. Place your hands on your heart for me. You are loved. You are loving. You are divine, connected, expressive, loved, loving, capable of so much love, strong, creative, and safe. You are so, so safe. So, take this with you. I hope that maybe some of the veil of illusion has been pulled from your eyes, and maybe you're able to sort of just shift, take a pause before you react and respond. I'll come through 3 times with our selenite wands so that you feel nice and clear. On the other side of vulnerability is true love and deep connection, and you are so worthy of that. One more time. Thank you so much for joining me. I would maybe watch something about self-love, maybe one of my sleep sessions or my self-love sessions after this, just because you deserve to feel safe and connected. Sending you so much love and support. I upload every single Wednesday and Sunday, so I'll see you here again very, very soon. And until then, be so well, my friend, okay? Namaste. just like sending love into the hands. Our palms are these like entry and access points for so many different energies to flow in. So doing Reiki hand massages I find really helpful. So soothing. So I'm just going to be sending this energy towards you. I love using things from nature to send healing energy. You know I love using things like driftwood, stones, all the earthly elements. I love using water as a healing element. Good. So sending that love towards you, and see if you can just maybe breathe it in. Fill yourself up with that gorgeous, loving energy. Imagine the aroma just swirling in and flowing all through your body. Which can be directed and channeled with laser-like precision to help you accomplish tasks and achieve objectives. Cool. This is going to be a really powerful time for you. 2 super empowering cards. You have this fiery energy, and you have like the earth and the roots and the ancestors. It's like star and earth and fire. Find as comfortable a position as you can. Maybe close your eyes. You could lie down, whatever feels right for you. And let's begin today with gratitude. Whatever position you find yourself in,